Listen, my name is Trea Brinson. As Seth mentioned earlier, I'm a church planter and pastor of Restoration Church, which meets right here in Wake Forest. And I hope by now that you guys have had a fantastic week. I know that you have sat in the sun for the past 2 hours, and now you get to sit through me preaching, so maybe you'll fall asleep, maybe somebody behind you will keep you awake, but nonetheless, I hope God gets glory from what we do here tonight. I'm sure that if you sat on the lawn outside for any amount of time, you probably started conjuring up a plan or a strategy for how you could take a selfie in the steeple of the chapel. Not a good idea. I know if you're a student like me, I'm mischievous at times and my sin gets the best of me, and that would be what I would be trying to do. Some others of you maybe have arrived at Southeastern, and maybe you are a single man. And you thought that the answer to this problem in your life was to come to Southeastern and maybe you would find your future spouse. Well, at the end of the week, you're already discouraged. If you look around, there's not a whole lot of females here. And if they are, they're already got rings on their fingers. So they're either married, they're engaged, or they're out of your league. And you're just having to deal with that. And I've been a student just like you and know exactly what that's like. But if you see the hot blonde in the back, that is my wife. She is off the market. Hate to bust your bubble, hate to dampen your spirits, but that is the truth. In fact, we love this institution. Southeastern has meant the world to me. It has been a huge tool that God has used to sanctify me, to make me look more like Christ. And we love this institution so much that tonight, my wife, Kayla, and I are celebrating our 5th year anniversary with you. We are. Well, no applause is necessary. If you want to celebrate with us, we do accept gift cards. My wife's favorite restaurant is Chili's. I like Rolex watches. Whatever you feel led to do, you just follow the Spirit's lead, okay? Well, listen, every Christian, every child of God at one time in their life or another has to decide if they're going to live their life for themselves or if they're going to live their life for something or someone else. Now, namely, God is the person that we ultimately want to live our life for, but the Great Commandment also says that a byproduct of us loving God is that we will love each other too. So we have to make this decision. Our natural instinct is to be selfish. We are very self-centered people. And we have to make the decision, are we going to continue to love self or are we going to love others as well? And as a student, right here at Southeastern, you will have to make that decision. You will have to decide if you are going to box yourself up in your apartment or in the library of this institution, or if you are going to go and live on mission during your time here. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. If you have your Bible, go ahead and turn to the book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah, we're going to look at chapter 29. Jeremiah chapter 29. We're just going to look at the first 7 verses. I'm not going to read them up front. In fact, all we're going to do is I'm going to read them as we walk through this text. So turn to Jeremiah chapter 29. As you turn, I want to set this text up for you real quick. The prophet Jeremiah literally has his stethoscope up to the chest of God, and he is listening to the heartbeat of God as it pulses with passion for his people. And God is delivering his message to his prophet Jeremiah, who thus is now delivering his message to his people, the Israelites. And you know the story. The Babylonians have come and they have invaded Israel, and now the Jews are captive and they are up under this oppression. The people of Israel were literally taken from their homeland. Everything that was comfortable to them, everything that they were used to, all of their comforts, they were ripped away from that. They were taken from their homeland, their security, their safety, and then they were moved in exile into a city called Babylon. Now, Babylon is a sin-infested city, and Babylon has a sin-infested king. And Babylon is filled with a sin-infested culture that is composed of sin-infested people. And now you have the people of God who have been moved from the city of God, literally, to this city called Babylon. Now God's people are finding themselves in the middle of a pagan culture with sin all around them. And they didn't want to be here for long, and Jeremiah is writing them this letter from the city of Jerusalem. And here's what Jeremiah is after, and I hope that you'll come to grips with this, is that Jeremiah shows believers how you can live for God in a society that has turned rampantly against that very God. But in order for us to make sense of this text before I read it tonight, I want to set it up by using the imagery of a great North African theologian, a guy by the name of Saint Augustine. Many of you are familiar with Augustine. If you're not familiar with Augustine, you will know who he is before you graduate from Southeastern, I assure you. But Saint Augustine wrote a book called The City of God. And in this book, The City of God, he paints the picture of two cities. One is a city of man, and the other is a city of God. And when he paints this picture, the city of man is a city that where man is literally the center. Man is the center. Focused on everything that we do is on self. What can I get out of this city? It's rooted in pride. It's moving to a particular city and asking how this city can benefit me. And then on the other hand, in contrast, he gives us this picture of the city of God. Well, the city of God is people. It's composed of people who are focused on God. What can I give the city is the question that they're asking. How can I move here and be a benefit to others? It's rooted in humility. It's rooted in shalom. It's rooted in peace. How can my life benefit the place in which I am moving? And on the screen, you'll see a quote that really sums up this entire book. The good make use of this world in order to enjoy God, whereas the evil want to make use of God and enjoy this world. What Augustine is really saying there is he's saying you have a choice. And your choice is this, that you can use God as a stepping stone to something greater, your joys, your pleasures, or God can be that something greater. And I petition to you, and I know in my life as well, it's a battle I fight every day, that I'm not putting things in my life to where God is a means to a greater end, but instead God is the greater end. And the only way I'll have joy is in him. So with that all in mind, let's look at our text tonight. Jeremiah 29, verse 1. It says this: "These are the words of the letter that Jeremiah the prophet sent to Jerusalem and to the surviving elders of the exiles and to the priests, the prophets, and all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar had taken into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon." Now listen to the language here. It says the surviving elders. This is intentional. This was on purpose. He intended to do this. The language is a clear indication that things in the city are not good. There are elders that survive. Now, whether they died from natural cause or whether they died because of the exile, we don't know. But there are elders who did survive, and the city is not doing good. In verse 2, he says, this was after King Jeconiah and the queen mother, the eunuchs, the officials of Judah and Jerusalem, the craftsmen and the metalworkers had departed from Jerusalem. What Jeremiah is continuing to do is he's painting this picture that is not a pretty sight. Jerusalem is being ruined. Their exiles have been shifted off to a city called Babylon. And these Jews have lost their homes. The city Jerusalem is now ruined. Everything that they know has been taken from them. Their economy, they literally have watched it become disintegrated right before their very eyes. Their people, the people they love, their neighbors, they're now enslaved. And King Nebuchadnezzar wasn't done. He takes this further. King Nebuchadnezzar did not leave anyone who was useful or ingenuous behind. He literally deprived the entire city. If you had any capacity to be an architect, a leader, a doctor, you were exiled, you were gone. He wanted to deprive the city of Jerusalem. So the picture's painted, Jerusalem is suffering, and all the Jewish elites have been exiled. And look at verse 3. The letter was sent by the hand of Elasah, the son of Shaphan, and Gemariah, the son of Hilkiah, whom Zedekiah, king of Judah, sent to Babylon to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Now, I know that was a lot of Achaïas and etc., but here's what you need to know, is that this letter was transported by the king's ambassadors, but ultimately, this letter was penned by God himself through his prophet Jeremiah. And then it said, and we're going to get into the contents of the letter that Jeremiah is saying to his people. Before we do that, I want to say this. God is commanding the captives to carry on with life in this text. You're going to see that he's saying just carry on with normal life. You're going to be there for a little while. Just move forward, have families, do what you would normally do. You're going to be here for a while. Live here like it is your home. To live like this was proof to obedience to God. It was validating that we know the hand of God is ultimately in control of our very lives. And it is important that they see themselves as the people of God, being moved by the hand of God, to do the work of God for the glory of God. And that was important that Jeremiah wanted them to see that. Listen real quick, student. I hope that you'll know this. When you are driven by your own desire, when you are driven by your own ambition, you are literally repelling the favor of God. You are resisting the favor of God from your life. God wants to align us with Him. He wants to align our agendas with His agenda. He wants to align our lives with His life, and that is to fulfill this thing called a Great Commission. God is after our obedience. He was after their obedience in this passage as well. Look at verse 4. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles, notice this phrase, whom I have sent into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Philip Ryken says it best, and I want to read you a quote. It should be on your screen. No doubt, when the captives discuss their sojourn in Babylon, they use words like abandoned or banished or condemned to describe what God has done to them. But that is not how God saw it at all. He viewed the exile as a mission. Literally, what he said was, seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have sent you. Nebuchadnezzar did not take them to Babylon. God sent them there. The exiles, they were not captives. They were missionaries. When you thought the past few days or the past few months that you were boxing boxes up in order to move your life, to uproot your life and move to Wake Forest just to pursue a seminary education, I want you to know that the hand of God was literally actively involved in orchestrating every detail of your life. You weren't sent here just to be a seminary student, just to be a person pursuing education. You were sent here as a missionary to fulfill the Great Commission, the mission of God. And Spurgeon said, well, every Christian is either a missionary or he's an imposter. He's either a missionary or he's a deceiver, a pretender. Listen, missions is rooted in the identity of our God. It's rooted there. God is on a mission, and you're an agent, a person He wants to use to fulfill His mission. But here's what's interesting is that Jesus is the embodiment of that mission. That's what Jesus is, or who Jesus is. Jesus identifies Himself over 40 times through the Gospel of John as being sent. And then He ends the Gospel of John in chapter 20, 21 by saying what? As the Father has sent me, so I am going to send you. In other words, our lives, for the rest of our life, the moment of our conversion, we were given an assignment to fulfill the Great Commission. Our lives were here to be sent, to live for God and His glory. And God is planting, literally, the city of God right in the middle of the city of man. So here's a couple of questions I want to throw at you real quick tonight. If being sent to be witnesses in exile was certainly not comfortable, then why do we think in our lives that being witnesses is supposed to be a matter of comfort? Think about it. I don't have the time. I got too much schoolwork to do. I don't have the time, man. I haven't been able to do this or to do that. Those things I love. Man, Saturday night football is about to start again. I won't have the time to share my faith. Man, I've got to make sure I catch the SEC network and all those games. The comfort of time. Some of you, maybe the comfort of knowledge. Man, I can't share my faith with that guy because I don't know enough. Maybe it's not the comfort of knowledge. Maybe it's the comfort of convenience. D.L. Moody was phenomenal in this. He would not lay his head on his pillow and go to sleep at night until he had shared his faith with someone. In fact, there were times in his life, his biography says, that he would lay his head in the middle of a snowstorm. He would go inside and he'd lay his head on his pillow and he'd remember he hasn't shared with anyone, and he'd go outside and find someone in the middle of the street and say, I can't sleep, I'm restless until I tell you about my sovereign God. Are we drawn with that same kind of intensity for this Jesus? Is our lives transformed with that same kind of intensity to where we embrace the fact that our assignment from God is to live our lives on mission? Think about what Paul said in 2 Corinthians. You are reconciled to God because of Christ. So now what? You are called into this ministry of reconciliation. So are you intentionally building relationships with the people for the purpose of sharing the gospel? You're going to have to decide that. Are we sharing the gospel in both deeds, with the way we act, or are we also sharing it with our words and what we proclaim? Look at verse 5. It says, build houses in this city and live in them. Plant gardens in this city and eat of those or their produce. Well, at this point, the Jews still had their bags packed. They didn't want to be here long. They viewed themselves like you and I view maybe yourself right now. I'm just transient. Man, I'm going to be here for a little while, but it's not going to be a couple years, and I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be out of here. And Jeremiah is saying, plant your roots, unpack your bags. Don't approach this season in your life as just simply merely being transient. Plant your roots here and live among the people. And I understand that as a student, we are literally, to some degree, most of us transient. You know where God has called you, so you're here for a little while to gain the education that you need to go and fulfill the calling on your life from God. I understand that, I really do. But please know that the best preparation for your ministry is to get involved with ministry while you're here. And I think that's been pushed on you all week long. Listen, guys, what a tragedy. What a tragedy it would be for me, or it would be for you, to look back at December and say, man, I have spent the last 5 months of my life, and man, I know more about the philosophies of ministry, and I know more evangelism strategies than I do about my neighbor. Because I haven't taken the time to actually know somebody and build a relationship with the purpose of advancing the gospel. What a tragedy it would be if you graduated from this institution and man, you knew a bunch of philosophy and you knew all the evangelism strategies, but you didn't know your neighbor. Make it a mandate that you do not do that. Verse 6 says, take wives, have sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters. Interesting word here, word choice. It says multiply there and do not decrease. Single dudes, he is talking to you. He is saying get hitched, get married, start a legacy. Now, I don't think that the courses that you looked at when you signed up for classes, I'm sure that none of them were any matchmaking class. And if Southeastern decides to go that direction, my wife would be a great professor, I assure you. Now listen, there's not. But the truth of the matter is, he does tell the single guys to get married. He wants them to establish families here. Here's a side note, by the way. Notice what he says in verse 6. Take wives. Who is he talking to? He's talking to men. It's interesting that men make up the majority of the people in this room right now. He's talking to men. And here's what he's doing. Here's what he's saying. He's saying, as a man, take some initiative. Don't stare at her from across the room. Don't follow her to the library. And please don't follow her to the car. That's weird. That's sketch. He's saying take some initiative. Go holler at her. Go talk to her. And for some of us guys, I know I wish I'd have heard that. Dr. Aiken has pretty much set me straight. He called me a sucking dog one time. I'll never forget that. He says multiply there. Specifically talking about increasing your family. That's what he means by multiplying there, but the implication it can go even further than that. He's saying that the kingdom of God is growing and advancing in the city when you multiply your family. And that's what it's after. Think the first command that he gave to man was what? To be fruitful and multiply. Why? Because being fruitful and multiply meant that you can establish culture. And he's saying that you have an opportunity to establish culture within the context of the city of man. And that's why you need to be fruitful and multiply. But here's what's interesting. You can't multiply yourself if you isolate yourself. You can't do it. You did not come to Southeastern to become a monk. You didn't. And I don't say that with any pun intended. I'm saying that seriously. That's not why you're here. He does not call you to pursue a theological education at the expense of fulfilling the Great Commission. He doesn't do that. He's saying while you pursue that, be a part of the Great Commission. Be living your life in that way. Don't live your life in solitude. Martin Luther said one time that it wouldn't matter if Christ would have died 1,000 times if no one ever heard about it. And it wouldn't. Romans tells us very clearly that how will these people know unless it's you and I who go and tell them. Verse 7 says, but seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf. For in its welfare you will find your welfare. Here Jeremiah is rendering them to be faithful subjects to King Nebuchadnezzar. And God's purpose behind this is to use their willing obedience as a witness, as a testimony for his glory. And that's what God's after. I put you here. Remember, he said that. And as you obey by me, that I can shine forth and my glory can go out. Seek the welfare of the city. This word welfare is basically the word shalom. It means peace. And listen to what Philip Ryken says again. He says, this is not how Christians usually think about the city. In fact, the city is usually chaotic. The city is usually loud. You don't really think about the city as being a peaceful place. Many Christians write the city off. At most, they try to establish their own fortress within the city. But God does not tell his people to seek the peace in the city. He tells his people to seek the peace of the city. Listen to this part. This is really good. God is not trying to establish a ghetto. God is establishing a government. And what does that mean? Well, what is a ghetto? It is a part of a city in which members of a minority group live. In the city of man, it would be the part of the city where Christians live, because we would be composed of the minority group. And he's saying, I'm not interested in starting ghettos. I'm interested in creating culture. I'm interested in advancing the gospel. I'm interested in my name being esteemed and glorified above every name. It's not about the city being a blessing to us. It's about us being a blessing to this city. And it's not how we can get the most out of it. It's how can we give the most to it. And he goes on and says, and pray to the Lord on its behalf. The only verse in the Old Testament where God explicitly tells us to pray for our enemies is right here. He does over and over again in the New Testament. So why would we want to pray for this city? Listen, when we talk about praying for the city, what Jeremiah is not alluding to is praying your casual prayers or praying my casual prayers. He's not just saying, man, just pray every now and then over a meal for the city. He's saying pray for peace in Babylon. And it appeared to be a huge waste of time to these Jews because they didn't think peace could ever come to Babylon. And my question to you is, are we or will we or do you already passionately plead on behalf of those who live around you? Passionately plead on behalf of those that you'll eat with in the same restaurants, those servers that will actually serve you? Do you passionately plead on behalf of those teachers who are teaching your kids? Are you passionately pleading on behalf of those people who do not know Christ? Are you praying for them? Mark Batterson says something amazing. He says the greatest tragedy in life are the prayers that go unanswered because they simply go unasked. We've got to ask God to move. And if we'll pray regularly, then irregular things will happen regularly in our lives because we're praying regularly. And Jeremiah is petitioning his people to simply pray. And as I conclude, I want to take some words out of one of my dear friends. His name is Ethan Welch. He's a church planter in Wilmington, North Carolina. If we take our responsibility seriously as Christians, if you take your role in the story, the grand narrative of God's redemptive plan, in his story, if you take your role serious, you'll pour yourselves out as an offering to the people that live near you. You will pour yourself out as an offering to those who have not heard the gospel. So here's the question. When is our work here done? Is our work here done when the city knows about Jesus? Is our work here done when our teachers and our school systems and our businessmen and our doctors and our dentists, is our work here done when those people, our city, know about Jesus? The answer is an emphatic no. Because it's really not about this city, it's about all cities. Every city needs Jesus. And we will not be done until all have heard about the good news of our glorious God. We won't be done. So it's about all cities hearing about Jesus. Proverbs 11 says this: when it goes well with the righteous, the city will rejoice. And when the wicked perish, there are shouts of gladness. The city had joy because people were being redeemed. The city reaps the benefit of people coming to know Christ. We must ask ourselves, why? Why does this city have joy when people are being redeemed? Because God is restoring things to his original design, and that brings him glory. The redeemed live differently than the people around them. They live countercultural lives, and people are blessed by the redeemed. So we mentioned that the Bible paints a fascinating picture as Babylon being the enemy city. But likewise, the Bible paints a picture of Jerusalem being the city of God. The two cities that are mentioned most in your Bible are Jerusalem and Babylon. One day, Jesus, he entered Jerusalem, and he entered the city of God. And while he was in the city of God, he was executed, he was tortured, he was spat upon, he was ridiculed, and he was thrown out. You see, you don't execute in the holy city. So you would go outside the city because it's symbolic of banishment, it's symbolic of exile. And that's what sin ultimately deserves. So you don't execute inside the city. What is sin? It's where we lose safety, we lose community, where we're casted out, we're separated from this God. That's what it is. We're banished, we're in exile, that's what sin deserves. And Christ went into God's city, and he was killed, and he was thrown out. Except you know what? It wasn't symbolic. It was reality. It really happened. And you know why it really happened? It happened because it wasn't his sin that had to be given there. It was your sin. It was my sin. And it was the city of man and their sin that put God, Christ, there. Hebrews 13:12 says, so Jesus also suffered outside the gates in order to sanctify the people through his own blood. So on the cross, Christ was forsaken. On the cross, Christ was thrown out cosmically and was exiled from the city of God. Why was he cast out? Why was he thrown out? Because as sinners, you and I couldn't be brought into the city of God without his atoning blood. So the reason you and I get to come into the city of God is because what Jesus has already done for us, the death that he died in our place as a substitute where you and I were supposed to be. And Jesus took our sin so that we could become a city of light in the midst of a city of darkness. Interesting fact. I believe Wake Forest, as far as I can recall, still has a covenant that says the highest point in Wake Forest is the top of Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary's chapel steeple, and nothing can be built above it. How positioned is this institution to shine a light into the city around us? How positioned is your life to shine your light that Jesus has given you into the darkness of the city around us as well. 2 little lines I heard one day, traveling along life's busy way, bringing conviction to my heart and from my mind would not depart. Only one life, 'twill soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. Only one life, yes, only one. Soon will its fleeting hours be done. Then in that day my Lord to meet and stood before his judgment seat. Only one life, 'twill soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. Only one life, the still small voice gently pleads for a better choice, bidding me selfish aims to leave and to God's holy will to cleave. Only one life, 'twill soon be past. But only what's done for Christ will last. Only one life, a few brief years, each with its burdens, hopes, and its fears, each with its clays I must fulfill, living for self or in his will. Only one life 'twill soon be past, and only what's done for Christ will last. When this bright world would tempt me sore, when Satan would a victory score, when self would seek to have its way, then help me, Lord, with joy to say, only one life 'twill soon be past, and only what's done for Christ will last. Give me, Father, a purpose deep, in sorrow or joy, thy word to keep. Faithful and true, whatever the strife, pleasing thee in my daily life. Only one life 'twill soon be past, only what's done for Christ will last. Oh, let my love with fervor burn, and from the world now let me turn. Living for thee and thee alone, bringing thee pleasure on thy throne. Because only one life 'twill soon be past, and only what's done for Christ will last. Only one life, yes, only one. Let me say, thy will be done. And when at last I shall hear the call, I know I will say, it was worth it all. Because only one life 'twill soon be past, and only what's done here on this earth and in this life for Christ will last. Father, give us a missional urgency that we've never seen before. Give us the capacity to share our faith in a way that literally starts a movement of God, not only here in Wake Forest and in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the nation around us, but throughout the entire world. God, help us embrace your gospel. Help us live our lives on mission. Help us live our lives with one aim and one desire, and that's that you are magnified and made much of and esteemed above every other name. God, we love you. We thank you for tonight. And it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.